Okay.
And we are live, I believe. A little bit of filler here, just in case the computers around the world are catching up. Hi there, big time small firm. I'm Jess Stafford. It's good to be back. I've missed you all. Um, this is the big time small firm hangout number 40, whatever it is. And I have been doing some rearranging in the office and still don't have a powered connection at my main, or a hardwired connection at my main desk. And I've been having all kinds of other fun that Greg and I were talking about before we went live here, but I won't bore you with that in our live portion here. But what I did want to talk about goes back to some things that have been going all over the blogosphere, all over the podcast sphere, comments in Big Time Small Firm and other online forums for architects. It gets to the value, and I want to chair or couch this discussion not in the value of architecture. Okay, this big time small firm is a small community of people who are running small firms, and we all know the value of architecture, right? Well, obviously, all of our potential clients, especially here in the United States, don't. And so we have apparently, as a profession, as a whole professional organization, if you're a member of the AIA, which is the leading national professional organization of architects, um, and as individuals, I think have fallen short of accurately and effectively, communicated the value of architecture and architects to the general public, our potential client pool. There are plenty of laws in place, depending on what state you're practicing in, that require your involvement on a project as an architect. But those vary from state to state. Some of them are actually requiring architects on all residential work and commercial work. Some states have limits. You're familiar with those if you're in the profession. For the sake of those of you who are watching that might not be, here in North Carolina, last time I checked, I think it was $1 million home had to have an architect on it, or one over 10,000 square feet. Multi-family projects have to have an architect. All commercial projects have to have an architect. And like I said, those laws vary from state to state. When we're talking about the value today, let's steer clear of the value of architecture. We know the value of architecture as professionals. For the sake of people who are watching that might not be in our profession or might not be practicing design or architecture, let's talk about how we as architects bring that value to our clients. Um, Now, before we went live, Greg asked if this was another spinoff from a podcast show, and actually, it kind of is, because those guys had a podcast a while back where this was quite a part of the discussion. And I posted a few comments in reply to that uh, to the effect of my feelings and passions about it. But before I blow too much hot air and monopolize all the time on the front end of this hangout on there, please let me allow my guests to introduce themselves. Today we've got Gregory Lavardera and Philip Hesketh. If you guys in that order would introduce yourselves by telling us who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and anything else that you'd like to add.
Greg Lavadera. I'm in Merchantville, New Jersey, which is a inner ring suburb of Philadelphia. Small practice, sole practitioner, sole proprietor, as it is. Phil?
My name is Phil Hesketh, sole proprietor of Dow Hill Architects here in Sanford, Maine. For those of you that don't know the state of Maine, that's I'd say probably halfway between Portland and Boston. I do everything from residential architecture through commercial architecture. Working on a lot of residential projects right now. So that's me.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for joining us. If you are watching live on YouTube, I would certainly encourage you to join this discussion, because on a topic especially like this, the more points of view that we hear on the Hangout today, the more value that the video gets posted to the Big Time Small Firm playlist will have to those who watch it in the future. So click on over to the comments in the Big Time Small Firm Hangout on Air, um, which is in the Google Plus community. And I'm looking on YouTube. I'm thinking that the comments might also show up if you're watching live on YouTube. So if you are, at least shout out, give me a +1 or give me a like or something. Let me know that you're out there. Um, I tell you, I'll be completely frank and open with you. Near the end of last year, when I was looking at a serious time commitment as the president of the American Institute of Architects Asheville chapter, along with my other volunteer roles that I play and responsibilities that I have here in Hendersonville, which is just south of Asheville. Big Time Small Firm has obviously worked its way towards the bottom of that priority list. I want you to know, though, that my interactions with all of you here are definitely not at the bottom of that, and I do want to keep Big Time Small Firm Hangouts going, but I am still looking for a viable way in order to work that out. And if you are interested in helping out with Big Time Small Firm Hangouts and hosting one from time to time, please let me know. Send me an email at JES@modarchitect.net or motect @gmail.com, or just circle me up on the Big Time Small Firm community or Google Plus. Let me know that you are an architect, you're running or working for or partners in a small firm, and that you have the technical wherewithal to be a Big Time Small Firm collaborator, moderator, and host in the future. We have a few already. Phil's actually one of them. I can't remember if I've moderated you or not, Greg, but thank you for your ongoing support and participation. There's a couple of others that said they were going to be watching today, so if y'all are on YouTube, shout out, put some comments up or something. Matthew Stanfield's one, Nicholas Renard's one. I think we have a couple more that I'm forgetting right now, but that's just because I usually don't remember things if they're not written down, or if they're written down. Anyway, I digress. The value of architects. So, guys, you know, Greg, with your practice and the home plans online, you know, I think that gets to one value that people have of architects, which is just to have a set of plans that they can buy at a minimal expenditure, get a permit, go get a building done. Phil, you might have a similar type of project where you're not actually doing a full service type project to your clients. I know I set my web page up to offer that a la carte architecture to clients, and have actually been able to provide those services to quite a few residential clients. But the longer that I do that, especially when I try to you know, take the proposal that they assigned that included some construction administration and see it through to the end, the more I'm realizing in my practice, and perhaps at some fault of mine, that they would rather not pay for that last service. They would rather not pay for the full service. They would rather have their builder holding their hand through the building process, and they don't care what architects have to say after the permit is acquired. And a lot of times they don't care what architects have to say before the project permit gets acquired. A lot of them see architects as standing in the way of what they want. They see us as bureaucracy agents. They see us as an investment that has no return. That is my sort of, realist view of where things go, um, and how things are going. I'm sure that there are plenty of you out there watching that have plenty of clients that want to pay for great design, that value an architect and the input that they bring to a project, talent, knowledge, skill set, documentation. That bureaucracy is very important, I think. Guys, why don't you talk a little bit about your views of your current work, your current clientele, and what values do you believe your clients are paying you for and are getting a return on?
Mm.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Greg.
All right, Phil. Well, I'm in one of those states that requires architects even for very small residential projects. I forget exactly the wording in the New Jersey code, but any habitable structure, you're supposed to have an architect. So that has, an upside and a downside. I've spoken about this before. You know, people are compelled to hire architects for, fairly insignificant projects, and along with that comes, the burden of being a, undesired requirement instead of somebody that brings value to the process. So um, so I do some work like that, certainly, and but more often I think I'm, requesting fees that drive people away, and they either seek some other solution or find an architect that's willing to do it for less. But sometimes I do work like that that is just simply very utilitarian, just to meet a new client, perhaps try to sway them to seeing that you can introduce more value to the process and make their life easier. So this is a tough subject, Jess. I don't really, I sort of struggled against this my whole, the whole time I've had my own practice, and I can't say I've discovered any answers. On the one hand, I'm doing, some residential projects where the customer is interested in design and interested in seeing you add value to the process. Then I'm working on one thing is a commercial project for a gas storage tank um, for a small industry, a small commercial client. And they're basically just being forced to hire me because the township won't give them a permit without a sealed architectural drawing. So I'm trying to do, an outstanding job for them so they can see that I've made their life easier, even though there's really no design component to it at all. So, yeah.
Well, I think design is a pretty significant part of our value, but fee-wise, it's a smaller chunk of the complete expenditure, and I think that disproportionality there might actually be part of the problem. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, for instance, on that little, industrial project, I'm trying to just, give the client something very thorough and, very comprehensive that gathers all the concerns of the project in one place so that they feel like they've, accomplished something by being forced to work with me. And it's hard. It's like how do you do that? I mean, if they had things their way, they would have, hired the company that's installing the tank. They would have done the whole job. What do they need an architect for? So, um, yeah, it's hard to establish that you're providing value there aside from satisfying the administrative requirements of the municipality.
Yeah, it is hard. It's difficult, and for some reason, through the years, we've ended up at this uphill battle type of existence, and it's been pretty frustrating for me as a new startup that doesn't have a portfolio of real built projects that are directly attributed to my firm name.
Yeah.
You know, I can just see a conversation going south when I show pictures and I say, "Oh, well, I was practicing with this firm," or "Oh, I was associated with this architect," or you know, that this, that, and the other, and you can just feel that distance slowly, you know, positioning itself between that project, that client, and you're doing it. And you know, it's part. I think part of the problem is learning how to overcome those situations by, you know, by redirecting the attention to what you have done and you know what you have accomplished on your own. And of course, when those firms have references that are talking highly of you, it helps. But you can't just call the reference and put the phone in your client's hand. They have to actually be interested enough to make that call themselves.
Mhm.
So, you know, it is a strange, not strange, but I guess a complicated matrix of factors, you know, that go into somebody that appreciates that value, that knows who you are and what you stand for, and have the opportunity and financial, you know, means to get something done. Uh, so, Phil, what's your take on all of this?
Well, I mean, I think this is, you know, like Greg said, this is a really difficult subject to talk about, and the reason I say that is because, um, you know, I look at it from the perspective of a lot of things I heard mostly during, like, say, the downturn and the recession was, you know, how do we educate people that, you know, architects bring value to the table? Because right now, obviously, during the depression or recession, whatever you want to call it, um, people were saying, well, I don't want to pay that money for that. They look at us as, you know, an added-on luxury, something that they don't necessarily see the value in, or, you know, want to spend the money on, that sort of thing. Um, and I think it's, you know, it's difficult to sit here and talk about this without, you know, sounding whiny. The last thing I want to do is sound whiny about, you know, people don't appreciate me. Why don't they understand the value of an architect? You know, it's a tough subject, but I think that um, where I'm coming from, you know, the company I used to work for, uh, what I did for them was a lot of projects that had federal funding, you know, multifamily housing, commercial projects, things like that, where, you know, the bank that was involved or the funding authority, like, say, the housing authority or whoever, would say, you will have an architect, you know, here in Maine. And that was easy because in that particular scenario, everybody understood the value and the reason for having the architect involved. And we were able to, you know, I was able to show people how we can take care of, you know, reviewing the contractor's requisitions and make sure that what they're requisitioning for, what they're asking for a check to pay themselves with, is actually in place. You know, and this kind of thing goes along with educating the public. Again, we talk about educating the public why they need the services of an architect, or what good are the services of an architect. But in my experience in the state of Maine, uh, it's a little different than yours, Greg, down in New Jersey. Everything in the state of Maine that invites the public in, any public building, any public space, requires the stamp of an architect or an engineer. Uh, the only thing that doesn't in the state of Maine is anything like a 1 and 2 family residence. Do not require the use of an architect or an architect stamp. So I'm finding that in the past, the company I worked for, and now the type of projects I'm getting, are people who have the means to pay for an architect, and uh, you know, they want to see what the architect can give them that would be different from, say, you know, like a set of plans out of a book that they might get. You know, and I did a project for somebody years ago where they had ordered a set of house plans out of a plan book, and they'd gotten this set of plans, and everything on the plans was essentially, they were cover your ass notes, because, you know, when you do these house plans, I'm sure, Greg, you can talk about this, but you never know where the person is going to take those house plans to be built, so it's impossible to cover every building code or whatever. So
Absolutely.
I showed them, these people, the value, not only in coming up with, you know, tweaking the design of the house. They loved the outside, but they wanted to totally redo the inside. But also helping them navigate, you know, what kind of building codes you've got to adhere to, that sort of thing. You do that? It's like all the time, all the time. You know what I mean? So that was a way that I was able to bring some, value into that particular project for those people. It's all over the map here, guys. What I'm seeing and what I'm doing, but I'm finding that it's getting easier to talk to people about uh, using me and including me in a project in whatever capacity they want to include me in. It's running the gamut from here's a couple design sketches. That's all we want. That's all we want. All the way up through give me the whole ball of wax from design all the way through handing over the keys. So I don't know.
Yeah, the thing that I wish I saw more architects doing and being vocal about and actually showing if they weren't afraid that it would sort of get them into a rut of doing that all the time is those kinds of projects, where it's not all the full service stuff.
Right.
Have a simple testimonial from a client that could not just whatever, kind of funds they rearranged or secured debt on, afford a full service architect. Have, a simple referral from somebody who just did a code consultation with them,
Exactly.
or who just did, the permit drawings for a little addition and all of the positive things that, that led to.
Mm.
Looking back on all of the projects where I was pressing to get, through construction administration and saying the whole time, look, I don't have to do this for you. I think the project would turn out better if I did, because I'm going to be there watching everything that goes on that construction site pretty closely, and I'm going to try to keep the contractor from sneaking something in and covering up on you. Look, if you've got a good trusting relationship with your contractor, again, this is me talking to clients, it might not be worth the money, but if you don't and you've just hired somebody to do this job, it might be. And the other thing that I believe that a lot of clients do not understand is the liability that goes along with construction administration that we take. Regardless of whether we're NCA or not, I think if something goes wrong on a project, the contractors and the architects are the first ones to get called, right? Well, if the architect just fires back with a letter that said, first of all, here's the letter that I wrote to my client when they terminated the contract prior to construction administration, so have a nice day. And B, I wasn't there during construction, so I have absolutely no responsibility for anything that doesn't exactly match my construction documents. Until a client gets into a position like that, I don't think they understand the value of actually having the architect on their side if
Right.
in fact they didn't really screw the pooch on something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of think that goes along with the fact of all I've ever heard over the last 4 years being on my own. I never paid attention to it before. Was we've got to educate the public on what the value of an architect is, what an architect can bring to the table, and to me it what I'm finding is it's like the project you were talking about, Jess. I actually have a proposal out for a couple right now to do a small addition onto a house. It's just a simple cape. He wants to build it himself. He'd gotten another proposal from another architect for over $20,000 for like a 600 square foot addition. And when I spoke with him and his wife, I said to him, I said, look, I would rather provide you like a good design that you're happy with, show you some sketches, give you some alternatives, throw out some ideas, and not charge you an arm and a leg, because you can kind of tell if somebody wants to use an architect but they're not really sure they can afford it, so they're kind of teetering on the fence. I would much rather do something great for them, give them some ideas, show them what I can do, and have the have the referrals or the goodwill from them be spread out from their friends. It's like, I saw what this guy can do for me. You need to, rather than he suggested I read an article. He told me he could do X. He said he could do Y. Which is all just a bunch of talk until they see something and they can physically, experience it or touch it or whatever, I'm finding that seems to be working well for me. It might be the way to go. I
Yeah.
don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah. I think when you talk about educating the public, I mean, that's I, I feel like that's such a lame
Yes.
fallback.
I agree. I know where they're
Yeah.
coming from when they
Yeah.
say it, but
You
educating the public versus showing the public is
right.
like, don't tell me, show me.
Right. What you're talking about is
Right.
being demonstrative. You're demonstrating what we can do rather than telling people, "Hey, we can do this."
Yeah.
And I think the only
Yeah.
way you do that is by, presenting to people the difference that you've made in a project. And now that gets back to,
Exactly.
these practical projects versus portfolio pieces. I mean, I've been working for 20 years. I have very little portfolio work to show you, where most of it has been very mundane, and it's hard to relate, like, what you've accomplished there for somebody. So
Yep.
that's the hard part. Testimonials are
Well,
great, but
they're hard to come by.
yeah, and if you want to show somebody, you really want them to be able to look at something and say, oh, before and after shots sometimes, really speak well to a project, and even with small things. But
Hmm.
there's no easy formula like, hey, this is how you do it. But the act of demonstration is much more important than so-called, you know, education. So
Yeah, that's where when you said that, Phil, that totally reminded me about the podcast that I mentioned from Archispeak earlier. And if you're an Archispeak fan, it's episode number 51, the Architectural Fight Club, where they started the discussion with an article that I still haven't read because I just believe it was clickbait on the implosion of the profession, or how do we keep the profession is imploding or whatever. Um, that kind of sentiment to me is totally missing the point. And the discussion was a great one from the guys over at Archispeak. But at one point, Neil in that episode said something to that effect about educating the public or the common man or something like that, and that kind of sent me into orbit because I think as soon as we put ourselves somehow above all of the clients that we want to do business with,
Right.
that's a huge problem with our profession. And there are so many uppity architects, the scarf wearing trench coat with leather riding
Oh
boots up
yeah.
to their knees, purple fedora kind of types. You guys know who I'm talking about. That really are making it difficult for the profession as a whole to survive what in this country is currently a class war on the middle class.
Well, I think
I think there's an ever increasing rift between people with money and between people with it and without it. And we in the middle fall into the sort of limbo of we have enough to get by, but not really enough to run some huge lucrative profession that's doing a bunch of architecture for rich people, or to be one of the clients actually paying for that stuff.
right.
So
I think people have a real perception, overriding perception, from those type of architects that only fill up the architecture magazines. That the architect's going to waltz in and say, it's kind of like the Price Pfister commercial where they sit down and the clients plunk the faucet on the architect's desk and say, "Design me a house around this."
yeah, that's
And
it.
the architect is going to say, "Well, this is your house. This is how you'll have this design because I say so. I'm the architect." Where I make a real point to tell people, it's like, yeah, I'm an architect. I'm going to come up with a design. I'm going to make suggestions, but it's your house. You're the one that's going to live in it, not me. I'm not
well,
going to tell you. I'm just
there
going to
is
make suggestions, give you ideas, throw out alternate scenarios, but in the long run, it's your house.
there is a segment of the market in residential as well as commercial that really do turn to the architect or the interior designer or the decorator to tell them what they should have. Like,
Oh yeah, and
and
there's
and very
nothing wrong
often
with that.
at the highest levels of budgets, and that's where this whole, the star architect and all of
Yeah,
that business
they're
comes
far
from.
and few between guys like us, though, I think.
Look,
Me, anyway. I
to
shouldn't
think
speak for you guys.
to take the position, though, that sort of relationship and disposition with the world should translate through all corners of architectural practice. That's the fallacy, and that's where, to me, when you advocate, well, we need to educate the public, that's the same thing. And, Colin Davies, who's a British architect that wrote about the housing industry in the context of prefabricated housing, spoke to this. And I posted this quote before, and I'll read part of it again because I think it's really pertinent. He says. Um, the argument quickly shifts its ground in the case that the general public should learn to appreciate good architecture. It's all a question of education. We need visual awareness classes in primary schools and preliminary architecture courses in secondary schools. In other words, the world will have to change to suit architecture, not vice versa.
Yeah,
And that's ridiculous. I mean, the public has its tastes, and I'm the first one to say that public taste has been greatly poisoned by the lack of participation from architects in commodity building. And what I'm trying to say is we've gotten so used to seeing McMansions that people think that, oh, that's what houses look like. That's what they should look like.
right.
That's not, so
So
it's,
have you guys seen the Wi-Fi antenna that's brought to the market by the designers of Nest, the smart thermostat?
no, I've not seen the
I
Wi-Fi
may
antenna.
have. I don't know, though.
So
What's it
look
look
up.
like?
There's an article in Wired recently about this Wi-Fi antenna that is also a system that takes care of security vulnerabilities, signal issues, and it just makes it to where you don't have to get up and unplug your router and reset it every 3 hours. So it's a great article, but the designers and the makers of this thing were quoted as saying, and this really made an impression on me, to your quote there, Greg, um, the, that people have been conditioned that ugly is okay, and people have been basically conditioned to accept it. And
Right.
so,
So
if
there
you
you
think,
go.
yeah,
So,
if you think about the current design of routers that, look like spaceships and clunky and,
yeah.
not that the aesthetic ideal is this little white thing with a smooth, like, baby's butt kind of form, but that's what they think is beautiful, and that's what they think all routers should look like, apparently.
So granted, we can't like contradict the public and say, well, look, your taste is trash. You don't know it's good, right?
Or 98% of it is shit, as our Frank Gehry would have us believe.
That's not going to get you anywhere. So I think the difference is it is not by showing these spectacular examples of good design, but by showing examples where good design improved the very mundane thing. The small addition, the small innovation, the Wi-Fi router, right? That's where you show how design makes a difference, and that's how the average person that can't hire a star architect and see like, oh, I can enjoy a little piece of that stuff. I can bring that architect in, and my addition or my renovation is going to be, a little bit special, and it
Little
doesn't
bit
have to
better.
cost an arm and a leg. We can make a difference in those ordinary situations.
Well, let me just.
The attitude towards the house plans too. That's the same thing, and I think that's how we stand to grow what we do.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Phil.
I think that this conversation shouldn't be just about architects can give you good design. Also, I mean, there's other things that we do too, as far as like one of the examples I give people is as an architect, I could potentially save them money on their new house by saying, have you thought about this? Go between the difference between say a three-tab roof shingle and an architectural roof shingles. A lot of roof shingles, the architectural ones, they may cost more, but they're actually, in some cases, depending on the manufacturer, a little bit bigger. They're longer. They take less labor to go on. So the less amount of labor you put in putting these more expensive shingles is a wash over the extra labor that you put on with the three tabs. You can get a better roof, a longer lasting roof, a better looking roof for about the same price. Now, I don't know that all builders are going to tell their clients that sort of thing, But I've had a lot of people say, really? When I throw that out to them, there's something else that I can do, you know? We can actually save people money.
Yeah,
It was,
that's another thing, and it reminds me also of this mid-century modern. I forget the name of the designer, but y'all remember this one? The developer or the new owners paid like 400 or four something $1 million for it out in just north of L.A., wasn't it? Before they tore it down, and
oh,
there was this huge outcry talking about whining, you know. Yes, it was a great loss of a piece of architectural history that I hope that was well documented before the bulldozers came to the site. But wow, what a great opportunity some people missed, you know, to say, hey, look, this house that this architect designed in California, somebody recently paid over $4 million to tear it down.
it was so valuable. They still wanted to tear it down. Oh God, hilarious.
You
Yeah.
know, that kind of value right there, Phil, is exactly where I was hoping that this discussion would go, and it reminds me of a little tease in the post that I did about ArchiSpeak episode 51 was a coffee that I had with a local designer named Amy Connor Murphy. She does some great work around here, and she and I have a lot of discussions about service models and the marketing of our value to people, and how, you know, what's the best way to share it. And I think that we have touched on the best way is just to do it and to show them. But you know, if you're not going to do that for free, you have to have examples of that, right?
Hmm.
So these little nuggets, like what Phil just described about different means and methods saving the client money and having a better product in the end, are little things that you can share with someone without, you know, being too far out on your own, or losing too much time, or maybe you give them a good idea that they can use even if they
Right.
don't hire you, but they're always going to remember where they got that idea, right?
Exactly.
um, and they'll tell people about it if they're, you know, good enough to do that. But the other thing that came out of a discussion that Amy and I had was, if you can kind of imagine a pie chart or two pie charts next to each other, that has the construction budget, you know, and okay, the architect's sliver of the construction budget is taken out of one pie chart, and then you've got the contractors, big, you know, they are eating the whole pie of the construction budget, right? Well, under those two pie charts, you've got duration of services. And say, for example, on a big custom house, a full service project, that little, you know, 10-15% of the construction budget is going to have that architect on the site throughout that maybe a year of construction, as well as the design that leads up to it, which is often a year on a big custom job, right? Now, that whole construction budget is half of the time that the architect is going to spend on the job. So that to me was an ingenious way, at its simplicity, of looking at value. From 15% of the construction budget for a 24-month relationship, compared to the contractor's 100% of the construction budget for a 12-month relationship, plus warranty, you know, on either end. To me, that's, you know, that's a pretty huge hit them in the pocketbook kind of value proposition. Um, Obviously, pointing out the ways that, you know, that any means, methods, equipment, this simple design decisions, and I'm sure, Greg, you run into it all the time with the way people situate your homes on wherever their building site is. You know, if you have some input about where to face the, you know, the elevation with more glass on it, and how to save energy from that, you
Yeah.
know, if people actually paid attention to their power bills and the statistics of how that kind of stuff translates to savings, I
Yeah.
think that, you know, that our value proposition would be a lot less of an uphill battle. But besides doing it and being demonstrative, showing work, sharing ideas, and getting off of this tract of, you know, this mentality of I have to educate the public. just show people. I think, having these factoids and saving percentages and, stuff paying for itself in 1 to 3 years by spending a little bit more money on Energy Star stuff, heat recovery units, uh,
Better
more well
insulation
insulated
methods, that sort of
windows.
thing.
Exactly, that kind of thing. That gets to that demonstration. That gets to, I have all this knowledge up here, and I'm going to give you a little bit of it right now. And maybe you'll hire me, and maybe you won't. But I hope that either way, that you take this stuff seriously and actually implement it in your project. Kind of attitude is going to get us a lot further than I am an architect and I know better than you, and I will show you by educating you how I know better. So, yeah, I think I'm getting a little bit of soapboxy there, so I'll shut
Yeah.
No, not at all, Jess. No.
up.
I completely agree with you, Jess. I really do. I mean, I've always sort of thought that the whole thing about, we need to educate the public as to the value of the architect. We're going to take you and bring you and educate you up to our level because you're not there. You don't see why we're so good. I just is a whole crock of crap as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. I probably that's blasphemy to a lot of people, but I mean, on the one hand, I understand why you want to take and educate people, but do and I hate to do this, but do doctors have to educate the public as to why people need to use doctors?
No, do
No.
it.
I
That's a
think that's a
perfect
whole.
example.
We've shown them what we can do as a profession, as far as helping people, treating injured or sick people. I don't know. Maybe it's a lame comparison, but
Absolutely not. I think that it speaks to what's valued in our culture, and obviously healthcare is.
right.
It reminds me of a Business of Architecture episode way back. Um, it was an interview with the architect who y'all might remember the name of, that escapes me at the moment, out of New Zealand. She's practicing in New Zealand, but she has Danish roots, right? And she was talking about how, in Finland and in Denmark, architects are rote. If you're going to do anything with your home, the first call is to the architect. And those are design-oriented cultures.
Mm,
We here in the U.S. not so much. We've been conditioned to accept ugly, right? So an example that she used, just on a simple, like replacement of some lighting and lighting redesign that she had recently done. You're getting into some guts there and tearing out electricity and redoing ceilings and repositioning stuff. And she said, if you needed to have surgery on your kidneys, for example, would you do it yourself? No, you
well, I
would.
could go on
You
YouTube,
first.
I suppose. Then I might attempt it.
Yeah, you've seen it on television, so yeah, then maybe you can attempt it.
Nor would you go into your doctor's office and let him know that he needed to do kidney surgery on you. You wouldn't be going in with the prescription expecting the doctor to fulfill your diagnosis. So
Right.
that's another part. But that's a different aspect of it, where where very often we're confronted by clients who who tell you that they know what they want to do. You just have to draw it up for
Yeah.
them.
I just
Yeah.
think that overall, Jess, based on what we talked about today, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a don't tell me, show me sort of thing, and don't have it be just the glossy pictures of this house that I did in the Hamptons, which I would never be able to do, but
Don't say
show me,
never.
show me the suggestion you made for this guy's kitchen. How was
Yeah,
it before? How is it that what did you suggest and why? And how did it end up and why?
exactly.
Show them.
Just boil it down to the real value, and that is, how can you change your client's life? How can you, like Gregory said earlier, make their life easier?
Yep.
And then at the same time, in the end, how are your fees going to pay for themselves, and how soon is that going to happen? I mean, if you boil it down to money, if everybody in our profession and our positions as starting up new firms, trying to become established, um, if everybody started talking like, all right, here's how much my fees are going to be, and here's all of the things that I'm proposing that are going to save you money based on current electricity rates and power consumption rates, gas, whatever it might be, heating oil, that are going to save you 3 times my fee in 10 years. You think people are going to start hiring you then? Of course, you got to add the additional, maybe the additional money for some of that equipment that wouldn't be as efficient as the cheaper stuff. And if you start showing spreadsheets with those figures on there, I think people are going to start understanding. Because you know what? They speak money. They know that language. There's
Right.
no education that needs
I
to happen
still
there.
I still find people that refuse to spend more money up front, even when the facts clearly show a long-term savings. But
You're always going to have the naysayer, the not believer, the person who doesn't care, maybe because they're going to sell the house in 3 or 4 years.
yeah,
Um,
but
and
I
then
see even with people that are long-term, occupants, it's a sort of a, you know, the money in
mentality.
your hand is worth more than the money you might save in the future. But
Yeah,
look, there's a tendency among architects to resist this kind of thinking because it begets smaller projects and places where you're trying to be effective that are very narrow, and they want to they believe that they're more effective and better projects for their business are larger projects or more substantial endeavors. But I think this is a place where we can. It seems like you're being reductive. You're reducing what you're providing, but I think this is a place where we actually have a great opportunity to expand. In a sense, we're moving into places where we're not operating now. Trying to provide services in situations where architects aren't providing services now, and that opens the door to larger, more substantial projects with people who are not otherwise not going to consider working with an architect. For all of these kinds of projects that you described, in our various states where you can build without an architect, by rolling up your sleeves and getting into those situations, you ultimately are going to expand the domain where architects are operating. So I think it's an expansive, you know, idea, not a reductive one. On the other end of it, on the construction end, I mean, I think to throw a bone to Mark LePage from Entrepreneur Architect, he's actually laid out in a lot of detail how he operates in the construction phase as a construction manager. And I
hmm
think we also have to strive to take more of a leadership role in construction like that. Not every client's going to be interested in it, but some people are very busy and they don't have the time to manage their construction project every day that way, and they may not feel comfortable just entrusting the builder to run the whole show. Um, so I think Mark's insights and model for operating in a more leadership position during construction are really great, worth seeking out and reading about.
Yeah, no doubt. And I will uh, I will post links to Entrepreneur Architect in the show notes so that we can go find that stuff later. When I say show notes, I mean the comments on the Big Time Small Firm Community event page for this hangout. Uh, the video will also be posted on the YouTube channel, which I will send links out to once my post production is done. I say my post production, it's really YouTube's post production. I don't know why it takes so long for these videos to show up there, but it just does. Um, and thank you guys for coming today. Before I close up, I do want to say also thank you for the RSVPs. I hope that all of you are watching. Jeremiah Russell, Nicholas Renard, Danny Cerezo. I hope I'm saying your last name right, Danny, and Louise Saint Romain. Dale Kinsock, some local friends of mine, a photographer and a consultant. Kenneth Crutcher, he's another a big time small firm moderator that I forgot to mention earlier from up near Chicago, and Jan Van Lowe. I hope all of you were watching on YouTube and the signal is clear. And to the maybes out there, Novej, Alex Melantiner, I think she's actually in Israel, so there might be some time zone issues there. Neil, I love you, buddy. I think the common man needs architects too, but I think we should really look at closely at how we go about it. And then Dushant Baisan, who has actually been chatting with me on a few things from India. So we truly are worldwide here on Big Time Small Firm in one capacity or another. Again, I do miss you guys. Don't think I am not wanting to be here with you one Friday to the next. I do have some serious time commitment balancing to do now, and I do sincerely want as many moderators that we can find to volunteer for Big Time Small Firm to get our hangouts on there more frequent, back to where they used to be, at least every other Friday, if not every Friday, if we can find a good team to do that. I will personally train you on how to use Google Plus Hangouts effectively, and I've had some guest hosts in the past who've done a great job on keeping the ball rolling here, and I'm looking for more. So let me know if you might be one of those. Otherwise, let me go ahead and kick it over to Phil for goodbyes and final thoughts.
Wow, final thoughts. We've talked about a lot of stuff today.
Go Patriots.
I think some great things
there
came out of this. What's that?
I said, go Patriots. I see that hat on there. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did mean to say something about your
the Patriots, baby.
I guess I have to bring a hat next time. I didn't.
Greg didn't get the memo that it's hat day, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I think that some great things came out of this conversation as far as, educating the public versus showing the public what we can do as architects. And I think that's the big takeaway from this is the more we can do, the more we work to show people what we can do. You know what I'm saying? As far as changing their mindset as to why they would want to even talk to an architect. That's all it takes, is just to have them talk to you.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work for them, maybe it'll work for somebody that they know, and
that's key.
It's going to start from the grassroots and grow.
Yeah, that last part you said there is key, I think, and creative people tend to take things personally when it really works against them to do that in some situations. I speak from experience. So if if you're doing a project for somebody who just wants you to be their permit fetcher, do the best damn set of permit drawings that you can. Go get it and get done with that client. But have that portfolio piece to show for it, and have something written into your contract where you can go take pictures of it without any trouble when they get done building it. And that's where we can keep our practice and practicing with purpose. To go back to the convention in 2014, if we're going to have that as our purpose, just to show that value consistently, I think we don't let those those interpersonal issues get in the way when we're at the drawing board. No matter what the client wants, if they've signed a contract with you, do your best, give them exactly what they want. And if you've got a problem with it, don't take them on as clients.
Yeah, don't even do them in the first place.
Exactly.
Well, I think you guys, summed it up. I can't say it any better. I mean, it's all about just, finding a way to deliver value in those situations that are, atypical. It's easy to do a good job. You got a whole house, a whole addition to design. It's easy to, do a great job for your client. When you got something like a, a storage tank at a at a business, and they need a permit drawing, and you're trying to do something valuable for them. It's harder, and you've got to figure out how to be valuable to your client in those situations. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
I think we can do it. It's good. It sharpens your skills, and it builds skills that will serve you and your clients well across your whole practice.
It's so true, and that's a great example too, Greg. And I also want to go back again to the Mark LePage mentality about those tank projects, for lack of a better term. In every single project, he said in one of his podcasts, there's an opportunity somewhere, and you've got to pick that opportunity to make that your money shot. It's the thing that if the whole rest of the project is just going to turn out to be, some basic utilitarian, non-inspiring piece of architecture, pick something there to put forth an extra effort that might be the only frame, that picture that you put on your website. And every project has one. And I think if we can show our best value, it would be to take any situation or project like that and find that opportunity and show up with it. Don't ask permission. Don't tell the client what you're going to do. Just show up with, a tank that has a great paint job on it, or some kind of mural
Well,
that
look,
relates to the surrounding context.
sometimes it's just a case where the client is being forced to jump through another hoop by hiring you, and the best you can do for them in that situation is just jump through that hoop as fast as you can, so that it inconveniences them as little as possible, and that's the biggest win that you can deliver them in that case. And so what does that mean to you? That means you're going to have the facility to sort of squeeze that little project into your regular workflow so that you can turn it around for them without compromising your other work. And then that's another skill set, like juggling a third project into the mix that way, so you can turn it around for them quickly. So that as an example, that at the very bare minimum is what you can do for them in a situation like that.
Get it done and get it done efficiently and
Yeah.
get it done well.
So they can get their
All
work
right.
done and get on.
Yeah, that's it. Well, great conversation, guys. Thank you so much for coming. It wouldn't be the same without you both here. I would definitely encourage more people to make the jump that Gregory and Phil have here today, to hang yourself out there like we have on YouTube. I guarantee you, really, these videos don't, go worldwide or anything. So don't be shy.
Yeah, yeah. This is fun, you guys. You gotta log in and participate. This is the most awesome part.
Maybe one of these days, Big Time Small Firm will go viral, but you've got an opportunity now to get in on the ground floor, as they say. Um, but we held it right to an hour today, which I think is fitting for our return to the airwaves here for 2015. So thanks again for watching. Thanks for participating. Look us up on Google Plus. Hit join if you haven't. The only requirement is that you be a practicing architect. It could even be one in a big firm, even though the community is called Big Time Small Firm. All of us are practicing in our own rights, and also I have it open to exclusive seats to affiliated professionals by discipline. All of those people, participate at some level or another. So I bend that rule when I see fit, but I really want to keep it as a community for growth, professional growth, and not one for promotion of products or services. Um, unless there's an opportunity for us to feature something like that on one of these hangouts that show an innovation or show how all of us can use something to better the profession and better our own practice and profitability. So y'all know why rules are there to be bent and broken if it works, right? So that's, just call them guidelines for big time small firm. But anyway, thanks again, Greg and Phil. Hope you guys have a great weekend and a great rest of your week. Stay on Big Time Small Firm to see announcements for our next hangout, which will be posted soon. I'm J.E.S. Stafford at the world headquarters of Modus Operandi Design, signing off for Big Time Small Firm. Bye now.
Thanks a lot, Jess.